Well, hello. What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. Happy to jump in here and share a couple thoughts about creating a scope and sequence for your next gen ministry. Okay, so now, scope and sequence. What is that? Okay, so that was a term that I heard a while back, and I was like, what is that? What is a scope and sequence? Okay, so let me do this. Hold on. Sorry about that. On the wrong camera. And let me make sure my audio is right too. Oh, there we go. Now we're okay. Okay, so creating a scope and sequence for your ministry. All right. So scope and sequence is basically from you take a age gap, get age period, I should say. So for next gen ministry, maybe that's birth all the way through young adults. So that scope and sequence is basically um, what do we want to teach, and then when do we want to teach it? What are the mile markers that we want each group to hit? What are some of those core principles that we want them to experience, to be a part of, to learn? How are we passing the baton from one age group to another age group? And so scope and sequence helps you to define a lot of those things. And so it's a great way for you to know that your kids ministry is preparing for youth ministry, and your youth ministry is preparing for young adults ministry. And also with staff turnover, that, hey, if you say in a 10-year period, you have, let's say 2-3 different people in the youth pastor role, or 2 or 3 kids pastors, that even though there's those turnover, that they're still going to come in and teach along that scope and sequence to say, hey, you can have your own style, your own personality, your own flair, but we want students, kids to experience these things, to learn these things along the way. And so parents can feel confident that no matter what's going on, that their students are going to learn those bedrocks. Plus, what it does is it allows you to better partner and equip parents to be a part of that process. As opposed to competing, you can now complement with the parents. So I know this is a big topic, and if you're like me, that sounds really daunting and very overwhelming. And in fact, it sounds kind of limiting. Like, oh man, you're going to tell me exactly what I got to teach, all that kind of stuff. And so not really. Okay. So it just gives some parameters. Okay. And so let me show you a scope of sequence. I was working with a church here recently, and they got this from Orange. It's called phases. And you've heard, people say, hey, it's just a phase. It's kind of a negative thing, but they've actually flipped that and said it's a phase. So be intentional about that phase. And here's what's happening in that phase. Okay. So it's taken from Orange. So this particular church does not use Orange curriculum, but they use Orange for their scope and sequence. All right. So let me jump in here and show you a little bit about what they have. So here are phases. Okay. So here's how they're using it. So throughout their next gen building, they have these banners, these up all over the place. Okay. So in their early childhood, nursery, preschool, all that kind of stuff, we are embracing their physical needs. Okay. Safety, and these are the questions, right? Am I safe? Am I able? Am I okay? And then down here, some of these things that they're going to be focusing in on the different levels and different ages. And then early upper elementary, what are they going to be learning? What are they going to be experiencing? What are the questions that they're asking? And so again, middle school ministry, high school ministry, it's walking all the way through these different age groups and these age categories. And again, when you look at this is just really trying to help parents, help the ministry think through what are the questions that people, students, parents are asking, what are some of those that they should be asking, and how do we help equip them? So it's not telling you exactly, hey, you got to teach this exact thing at this exact moment in this exact way. Okay. So, but it's giving you some framework to say, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about. Here's some benchmarks. We want to make sure that they experience these things. So again, Here's another sign that they have in their building as you're entering down. They have a downstairs. And so again, it's a time frame in a kid's life when you can leverage. Okay. So again, be intentional about what you're doing in each of these phases so that you can help parents and families. Okay. So another thing that they've done is that they go through and they have, you may have seen these, but they have, let me try and find the photo here for us. So they have jars that have marbles in it. Okay. And each of the jars tells you how many weeks are in this time period before they graduate and go to 18. So for example, when your child is 2.5, you have 806 weeks until they turn 18. So again, what are you doing? How do you be intentional about those 106 weeks that you have with your child? Okay. So then again, they're going to go through and they're going to have some things to equip parents with what to do in each of those phases. Okay, so let me show you. So Orange, again, provides these books about phases. And so you'll see here that in each one of these, they have 5th grade. Here's what you should be doing with 5th grade. Here's what you should be doing with your 3rd grader. And so I've read a couple of these books, super helpful. Age specific, what are the questions they're asking themselves, some parenting tips, some suggestions on what you can do for a kid in that age period, things like that. And so this is a super easy way. Again, you don't have to use all of Orange material in order to use their phases, scope, and sequence. Okay. So I'd encourage you guys to take a look at Orange's phases sequence and see if it might be a fit for you guys. Maybe you don't use the whole entire thing, like this church in particular is using the, they've customized it obviously for themselves. And so I encourage you, use it as a starting block. They've got great materials, great books, great promo materials. And then what you can do is begin to frame your parents' training materials around that. So maybe you do a quarterly parent night and you're framing those things around those questions and what you're going to be talking about. Okay. So scope and sequence for your NextGen ministry is a tough, daunting thing, but Orange has really helped out in creating it. And again, you don't have to use Orange curriculum to get a hold of this phases sequence. So we'd love to. What's your thoughts? Are you guys using this? You using something else? Do you have a scope and sequence for NextGen ministry, or do you just kind of teach things? I know for me, I had a few different landmarks. I knew I wanted every junior hire to experience some high school things for them that I wanted to make sure they experience. So we'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this.